Welcome. So happy everybody's here. We have been having a really fantastic time with this show.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I said to the director, Maggie, and the choreographer, William, I literally every time I would drop in the rehearsal platform, I felt like I was either at a family gathering or a party. I was like, is there well, yeah, there's a show going on here, but sincerely, there was such joy and camaraderie. So you will see that on the stage tonight. The chemistry between the four of you, and I don't think chemistry really does it justice, but the relationships that you've all been in film. And we have a very fast rehearsal process here. It's basically 11 days, although for Jersey Boys, we had the four guys come in a couple days earlier because those vocals on those harmonies are so challenging and so specific, so they had some time. So walk me through from the moment you guys all walked in the room and went, okay, we're the Jersey Boys. How did you guys figure this out?
Yeah, I mean, well, it started with music rehearsals. We got here a little early just to do some music stuff. And like you said, that was the biggest daunting task, was just getting all the harmonies right from the onset. And for the most part, I had met Andrew the day before because we got in a day early to see Dear Evan Hansen, which was amazing. But the other two folks, Corey and Ryan, I met on that first day. And the way it came together is kind of a blur because it was a very fast process. So it kind of just all melded together at the same time. The way that the Muny works, it's all so quick. So music rehearsals is how it began. We very immediately had a little bond, a little connection there. And we met up after rehearsals in our hotel at the Chase just to rehearse lines. Snuck into a room that we probably shouldn't have been in so we could practice choreography. So what was great about it was starting with the music with the four of us became very appropriate for the show itself, because the show is about these four people who it is each of their different relationships to the music that they're making and how it affected their personal lives. And for us to start in that music world and bond starting at that point was really great. But after that, I blinked and then opening night came. So it was all a blur,
So he auditioned in New York. We did particular auditions for the show because it is about these four men. And I remember your audition so specifically because before you even opened your mouth, the way you walked in the room and managed yourself and everything, I was like, oh, please God, let him be able to sing. Because you were so charming. You were so charming. It was just sort of this energy.
It's all fake. It's all
well, it's convincing. Is it daunting for you to take on an icon, to stand before thousands, acting it, representing it, recreating it, whatever language you want to use? What is that for you?
Well, yeah, right. The charm, the front man energy of it all is a hard thing to balance in your head when you're doing a role like this. That is such an iconic figure that everyone is already familiar with, or most people who are coming to see the show are already familiar with. So in my many years of doing theater and singing, I started with a singing background more than an acting background. So I, from a very young age, was performing at weddings and singing stuff like Can't Take My Eyes Off of You. So it was already in my body to kind of be more of a concert singer, in that way. So I was talking with my friend Maggie about this earlier today, that people expect, they're like, oh, you're playing Frankie Valli? What, did you watch every interview with Frankie and try to analyze his physicality and the way that he speaks? And the answer is, yeah, sure, I've done the research in that end. The answer is yes. No. But I've done enough research in that end, but it's not to mimic. It's to capture the energy. And what I wanted to do in that rehearsal room and hopefully on stage every night is capture what was magnetic about Frankie, which is the love of the music and the devotion to the music itself, to the songs. Frankie has all these interviews about, oh, you're still on tour, which he is still singing, which is crazy. They're like, how do you do it? How do you not get tired of these songs? And he's like, well, it's not about me. It's about the people listening to it. And that's what it is about. So yeah, sure, it's daunting in the sense that, like, before the big songs like Sherry or Can't Take My Eyes Off of You, I'm like, oh God, I gotta not mess this up. But then when the songs start playing, I'm like, oh, it's the song. It's about the song. It's about my delivery of what is already brilliant material.
Let's rewind a bit because you dropped something in there. So a question I'd love to ask is, how old were you and where were you when you realized, oh, I may have something called talent?
Something called,
well,
something
you're a kid
talent.
and you're like, something's happened. I've seen it and people are responding to this thing I have.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I sung from a pretty young age.
How young?
I want to say like first grade-ish. My mom, from what I could first remember, would play Ella Fitzgerald in the car, Queen. Four Seasons didn't really come until later on in my life. Around middle school was when I started to actually listen to them. But it was a lot of jazz and classical music and classic rock. So I would sing along in the car. And I remember learning to harmonize to the Beatles. I would just be in the car and I'd pick out like a guitar line, and I'd be like, oh, you hear, I'd talk to my mom, I'd be like, do you hear that? She's like, I did not hear that before, but now I hear it. And I realized at a pretty young age, around like second grade, that I had an ear for the music part of it. But honestly, the theatrical part of my talent, if you could call it talent, which I'm humbly not going to say is talent, didn't come until high school. I didn't start really doing theater until high school, and it was because I loved the music of How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, which is a great musical if you haven't listened to it. I loved singing I Believe in You, and I'd sung it in a concert setting a couple times in a Miami Children's Theater, which Katerina McCrimmon, if you saw Evita, we went to Miami Children's Theater together. We spent a lot of our childhoods together. They were doing a production, and she was in that production as well.
How old were you in How to Succeed? Like children's theater?
Yeah, I was a freshman in high school, so I want to say 15-ish. And I was intern number 2, which I don't. If you're not familiar with the show, that is not something that exists in the show. But that's what started my love of theater, was being in that show, and ever since it's been that. But yeah, from a young age, it was mostly a musical thing. I was in choir from a very young age. Yeah.
And you studied voice at Northwestern?
I studied, voice and opera performance at Northwestern.
Have you done opera?
Yeah, I did opera through most of my high school life. I did a lot of Gilbert and Sullivan, that kind of operetta. But then in college, I was able to do a good amount of opera, some classic opera, Baroque, Romantic, even New Age opera. We got to do some premieres of new opera in Chicago, which was very fun, but different. So
in studying voice, vocal technique, and taking care of your instrument, I've been at every performance, and you've been extraordinary every night listening to you.
Thank you.
So what do you do to prepare your voice? What's that discipline?
Yeah, it's a warm-up, you gotta warm up before you sing or do kind of anything. Same way you stretch before you work out or go for a run. You genuinely do have to stretch your vocal cords. You have to, prep. A lot of it is just getting enough sleep, honestly.
So what's your minimum amount of sleep?
Minimum, I would be lying to you if I said I've been waking up before 11 a.m. these past couple days during the performances. Because, we have an 8:15 start time. The show's about 2.5 hours long. And then afterwards, it's not as much about the warming up, because warming up for me is like talking throughout the day. That in and of itself is enough to warm up. any voice on top of some extra, what we call sirens, where you try to like get to the top of your range in head voice and then to the lowest part of your range in chest, to warm up that higher end for the Frankie Valli of it all. But then after the show, it's about warming down, and it's about calming your voice and telling your larynx to just settle back down. Because when you're singing Sherry or Walk Like a Man, or basically anything in the show, your voice is like, you're like not pinching, but you're like finding this like bit of air that funnels through your vocal cords at this very precise, it's very cultivated, it's a completely different technique from the rest of it. So it's about calming the voice down after and just getting enough sleep and hydrating. Speaking of.
Well, hydrating really played up around here. Now you have played the part, my understanding is, once before in a very tiny theater. Like how many seats was that theater?
Man, I want to say less than 1,000.
Okay. And now we're doing 11,000.
Different.
We'll talk about that difference. But also,
yeah.
I mean, obviously we've got microphones, so that's sort of in a range. But
sure.
In terms of your performance, your experience of the audience, what is it like here?
Man, it is like, it's beautiful. Like, this show makes it feel like a concert already, because of the diegetic nature of the music. It's where the plot is happening, and then Bob Gaudio will speak to the audience and be like, and then I wrote Sherry, and then we performed Sherry, and then it cuts to us performing Sherry in front of a live audience in the context of the show. But then the context becomes the reality, because I'm performing it to this sea of faces, and it is, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it right now, because being able to perform songs like Sherry or Can't Take My Eyes Off You in front of a crowd like this, where it feels like it's even more appropriate than performing it on a Broadway stage, because that's the nature of this music. It's like for a concert setting. It's for people who really want to be right there in the music with you. And when Sherry comes on, one of those first chords come on, and like I see people's heads in the audience being like, it's gonna be Sherry. Sherry's gonna be and they're like, I know that, that makes it.
Well, one of the things I say about the Muny, one of the things I treasure about it is a very different audience experience than if you're in a theater with walls and a roof.
Yeah.
Because that concept as an audience member actually allows you to kind of forget everybody else. Here, you're aware of being in an audience.
Oh, yeah.
And that gives the experience and the dimension, and particularly with a show like this, because everybody unites to sort of these moments. And, Jersey Boys is known as a jukebox musical, which means you take sort of pop hits, established songs, and you do a story. And there's two ways to do it. You do the Mamma Mia thing, where you create a story around it, and here's the songs, or you do the bio thing, which is beautiful and this. And Jersey Boys is considered the gold standard. I mean, it's just written so brilliantly. But one of the things it does is you watch the first act tonight. The guys start singing, the group starts forming, and there's a thing in musical theater, in a musical, called a button, which is an end of the song. Like there's a beat or a pop, which inspires you as an audience member to clap, right?
Right.
Like one of the things when you're fixing a show, you're like, we need more buttons, to sort of thing. This show deliberately, for the first 25 minutes, you're going to want to clap, and it keeps going.
Yeah.
And then you'll see this moment where something happens, blah, 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 and you're finally allowed in, and you'll know it. And wait till you hear the reaction. And part of what's going on, not only are they grateful to these guys, but it's all this pent up. I've been waiting to do this. It's so brilliantly constructed, because you're following the journey of these guys and the story. I want to go back to you for a second. So we go to Northwestern, and then
and then the pandemic hit.
That happened.
I graduated in 2020. So I didn't finish my schooling, basically. I mean, I finished it online. But yeah, I did opera at Northwestern, but I also did the musical theater certificate program. They don't really have a musical theater degree at Northwestern. They have this thing where if you're an opera major, you can take some extra classes in theater that can get you the certificate. But yeah, the pandemic hit. I was supposed to be in the Chicago premiere of Be More Chill before the pandemic hit, but the pandemic hit. Stayed at home for a bit. Then I moved back to Chicago, did some theater in Chicago, worked at Chicago Shakespeare Theater, which if you're ever in Chicago, see whatever is going on at Chicago Shakespeare. They've done a lot of premieres of shows that eventually go to Broadway. Worked there, and then very soon after that, I was on tour with Dear Evan Hansen. I was on tour for about a year, and that was a lovely experience. And after that tour, I moved to New York.
So during the tour of Evan Hansen, what was it like seeing our production?
Oh my gosh, it was beautiful because I know the show so well, obviously. But my friend Mikey, who played Evan, him and I have done a couple workshops actually in the city. Right before I came here, I did 2 workshops with him.
A workshop is when musicals are in development. You basically 3-4 weeks. You bring actors, musicians, writers together, and everyone sort of tries to piece together something to say, is there something?
Right.
Can we take this further? Sorry.
Basically, like when your creative friend like corners you in an elevator and gives you a literal elevator pitch about something. It's like we try to manifest that elevator pitch so then they could show it to more people and then see if it works or not. But yeah, I'd done a couple workshops with him, and he told me in that workshop, he's like, I'm going to be Evan at the Muny, and he had just gotten off of doing it on tour most recently. And I was like, dude, I'm doing Frankie Valli at the Muny. That's crazy. And we bonded, and that's why when I got here the day before the 4 seasons started rehearsal, and I found out that I was able, just physically, time-wise, to be able to see Evan Hansen, I was jumping at the bit. I like really wanted to see it, and it was beautiful. Like the way that the Muny incorporated extra bodies on stage, the Muny teens, who are the most talented group of people I've ever met. It's crazy. But on top of that, like seeing such an intimate show, I was talking to Baxter about this, in such a large capacity that affected so many people. It was this beautiful moment during the end of the second act, where there's this beautiful moment between Evan and his mom, where she's consoling him. And it's a song called So Big, So Small. It's my favorite song in the show. And there's this moment in the show where he's sobbing. I'm going to get emotional just thinking about it. He's sobbing, and she's just holding him and saying, your mom's not going anywhere. Your mom is staying right here. And she repeats it 3 times. And right in front of me was a mother and her daughter, her adult daughter. Couldn't be younger than like 19 or 20. Her daughter sobbing into her mother's arms, and her mom holding her daughter, and people connecting at such an intimate level on such a large stage, and like hearing the sniffles in the audience, a huge wave of sniffles. It was so beautiful, and I was so happy to see, because this is the first production of Dear Evan Hansen that I've seen aside from the one that I was in, you know? So that was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Does anybody have any questions? I can open it up here. Someone's pointing. Yes.
Hi. You've performed in lots of different places. What's something that surprised you about performing at the
To kind of take it to the backstage of it all, like I was really surprised by the community behind like the theater here, you know. The fact that everybody backstage, people in the audience are so just game for it. And by that I just mean like people are just up for the challenge, you know, like everyone backstage is like, we know that we only have basically 12 minutes to put on this show. And I got you, you know. That was so impressive to me about working here, and the fact that the audience at the Muny are people who are season ticket holders, people who come to the Muny, even if they're not the biggest fans of theater, as in, not that they're not a fan of theater, but it's not their thing. They don't go to Broadway shows, but we're gonna go to the Muny, you know? That kind of accessibility at the Muny and that kind of community is far different from anything I've encountered, especially being on tour, on the road, like performing in cities that you've never heard of, cities that you're very familiar with, places like LA or Chicago. Nothing is like the Muny. Nothing is like the community of being here, on stage and off. It's really impressive more than anything else.
You talked about cooling your voice down. Like, what is that entail?
It's literally like, and I'm going to give an example here. Like, I'm saying Sherry the entire time, and then it's literally getting the voice back down to there. So sirens, which I will give an example of, when you're warming your voice up, you go, ooh, it's doing that, but starting up and then going down, which is typically the opposite of when you're warming up, when you're going like, ooh-wee, 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 ooh-wee. And then after the show, my voice is like up here, like I'm talking like this, and then I have to go, and just literally sighing back into a more normal speaking voice.
So, like before the show, if you walk through the dressing rooms, you hear just that all coming from every room. Everyone's sort of getting the muscles ready, particularly on this show.
Big time. Oh my gosh. And it's so corny. My brother, who is 3 years older than I am, and he also studied opera. He still does opera. He's the one who kind of taught me this warm up for the show, especially because this show you have to go in between the falsetto and the chest voice. Sherry is a song that uses almost exclusively falsetto, and then Can't Take My Eyes Off You uses almost exclusively, 100% exclusively chest voice and belt. So I will do this thing, and it will sound like I'm losing my voice, but you'll pass by my dressing room and you'll hear, ooh, and people will be like, hey, are you okay? And I'll be like, yeah, because that's literally your voice, that mid-range between when your voice is speaking, where your voice speaks is typically chest voice if you have more testosterone. And when you're transitioning to head voice, that exercise of going, ooh, that crack is intentional because you're bridging the gap, and then the more you do it, the less you'll crack. And then it'll bridge the gap a little easier. Pedagogy, which is the study of vocal technique, fascinating. I highly recommend.
Yes.
Have you met Frankie Valli? And if you have not, do you wish you could do a duet with him?
Oh, I mean, of course. I mean, like 100%. I mean, he's an icon, man. Like, I haven't met him, and somebody asked me a while ago, like, have you reached out to him? And to me, it hasn't crossed my mind to, because this show is such a staple of musical theater. It's like, almost for a lot of people, has transcended the Four Seasons. Not in the sense that it's forgotten about them, but it has become a staple of, oh, we're gonna go see Jersey Boys. And for some people younger than I, like, they know Jersey Boys, they don't know the Four Seasons, so whenever I've done this show, it's been like, well, I'm just another person playing Frankie Valli. I'm sure he doesn't want to hear from me. Like, I'm not going to reach out to him. I'm sure every person who's ever played Frankie Valli has reached out to him and been like, do you have any tips? That kind of thing. And I do what I can, but I've thought about reaching out to him, and I should. That's a good reminder. But I would absolutely love to sing with him, because and you could raise your hand or not. Have y'all seen this production yet? Yes, no, some. And those who aren't, are you seeing it tonight? Maybe. Got you. Great. What we discussed with our music director Paul is like bridging this gap of trying to sound like Frankie, getting that nasal, like, that way that he sings, this really bright, pingy sound, while not being an imitation, because you don't want to become like an Elvis Presley impersonator.
Yeah.
You don't want to be somebody who's just doing
it's
a caricature.
One of the things I love, you'll experience this tonight, when the moment finally arrives that the four of them are together and they sing for the first time. What I love about it, your four voices in the sense that they're four voices, and it sounds, associative, it sounds like it, but they make sense together. That's what you want to do. There was a sound of the four of them together where it was something new, it was something special, it was something that attracted, and when the four of you finally lock in, you kind of hear that and you're compelled to it.
Right.
It's really, really good and really hard
Oh my God.
to get.
It's so finicky. That was part of the callback process. I had auditioned for this show by submitting a videotape, and then I had come back for an in-person audition or a callback. And I had done my Frankie business. They asked me to sing "Can't Take My Eyes Off You." I sang "Can't Take My Eyes Off You." I did a little bit of some of the more falsetto songs, some scenes. But then part of the callback was they brought four guys together and they would test our blend. They would make us sing together. And it was, the blend was a big part of it.
Yeah.
So that was very cool.
Thank you so much for your time. You have to go warm up now.
I do. I do.
And thank you all so much.
We're so lucky we got to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it.
And I'm so excited for you guys to see the show tonight. Those who have not, I'm so excited. Yeah. Thank you.
And
Pablo has been incredible.